So hello, everybody at home. Hello, everybody at the Bowen. The people at the Bowen probably will notice that I am not there because I have a bad cold and I did not want to share that with everybody. So we're going to do our best here tonight. I know they're having connection problems at the Bowen because I have the big cable that we use at home with me. So we will do our best, but let me go ahead and get the slideshow started. All right, we'll see what we can do. So we'll talk about some business events. Brandon is hopefully going to do a presentation tonight. And then our photo challenge is beach. I see that Lisa and Michael are online, so we will at least be able to do that part online. So we'll give it a go. So first, we decided, the planning committee decided to open up the meetings to the unpaid members again. So unpaid members are now welcome to come to the meetings. You still have to be a paid member, though, to go on club trips or attend workshops, go to the Christmas dinner, picnics, things like that. But a lot of benefits if you are a paid member, and all the money that comes in goes back to the club. It pays for things like the equipment, events, Zoom fees, paying the Bowen. So I have the link there to join the club if you want to. It's northgeorgiaphotographyclub.com, and just click on membership. So we were going to let Dick talk a little bit about the future of the club. I don't have notes with me, so I don't know if Dick is able to speak or not, but I'll let him give it a try. He's
Can you
on
hear-
Brandon's spot.
Mike, can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Okay, good.
All right, so we're up to the future of the club, the stuff that we were discussing.
So is this my turn?
Yes.
Okay. So I already told this to the folks in the room, but I'll say it into the microphone this time. Only two things. This is quick. We have $6,360.19 in the bank account. We have 2 new members since the last meeting that paid dues. More importantly, we are in desperate need of some volunteer help to make this club operate. We need people to be officers next year, and we need a variety of other help. So if anybody at all is or knows of anyone or can twist the arm of anyone to help us out next year, please get a hold of Mike or myself. 2 to 4 hours a month per person feels about like what we're asking. So it's not a lot of work. And many hands make light work. It's the end of my pitch.
Okay, and what we want to do is we want to try to break it down. We kind of said at our little planning meeting we had last week that I'm in charge of administrivia. So once we have new officers and new president, they don't have to do everything I do. They can delegate some of the stuff. For example, I'm the one who's been approving new members to the Facebook page. Michael Gagne took that over 2 days ago. So that's one small thing off my plate. So if you're interested, let us know, because we can use the help. You can spread it out. We can help you come up with ideas for next year. We need fresh blood, and it's time for a change. and I'm going to go ahead and say this, Dick. We don't want to go to the nuclear option. The nuclear option is if we don't get the help that we need, we may have to disband the club. If we disband the club, then due to the rules of the incorporation, the money that we have gets donated to charity. The equipment that the club owns, such as the laptop I'm using tonight, the cable that I have at home instead of there tonight, the microphones, things like that, that has to be sold. The Athens Club went through that, and after about 2 years, they were able to come back. They were able to get somebody to take over the club. We don't want the club to disappear. I love this club. I know Dick loves this club. And as I've said many times, it's not our club, it's your club, or it's our club, everybody here. So we've got some ideas, and anybody who is interested or thinks they have a little bit of time per month, just let us know, and we'll keep this going next year. But no, we don't want to go to the nuclear option. All right, so now on to more fun stuff. Rick's going to talk about the field trips, but real quick, I'm going to talk about 2 of them, and then Rick can talk about the others. The Dragon Con Parade is on August 31st, so anybody who's not going to the macro workshop that we have on the same day can go to the Dragon Con Parade. I'll put information about this on the Facebook page. This is not going to be an official club event. Anybody can come. There's 75,000 people there. There's no way we can police that only paid members can come. So I know every year Barry and I go. Sometimes we have 3 or 4 club members. Sometimes we've had a lot more. But anybody who's interested, contact me. And like I said, I will put the information on Facebook next week. But basically, we shoot the parade, we go eat lunch, and then we do a lot of street photography with all the people in costumes. There is a lot of interesting and cool stuff to photograph. The other thing I wanted to talk about that I'm in charge of is on October 19th. That's when we're going to do our annual train chase, the TVRM train chase from Chattanooga to Somerville, Georgia, and back. Those who've been in the club for a while, you've seen the pictures I post. Some of you participated in that. That is a fun trip. We basically chase the train, get in front of the train, take pictures, go to the next spot, take more pictures, and it's a lot of fun. We do have a if you remember the pictures from last year with the red pickup truck, he lives up that way, and he likes to stage his truck at different crossings. So I haven't spoken to him yet, but he's probably will do that again, and just watch for details for that coming up. And last thing I'll talk about real quick, because I don't think that he's online. The picnic. We're going to be doing the picnic on October 6th. I believe that's a Sunday at Don Carter State Park at Lake Lanier in Gainesville. I don't have all of the details on that. I know he's still working on that, but we'll probably have it catered. But anybody who would like to bring something, if you want to bring a dessert or drinks or something, you're more than welcome. But we'll have more details. Kevin will have more details on that next month. So, all right, Rick, you can do the rest.
So the room has already heard my spiel on the upcoming field trips. I will say 2 things. One, I've emailed to all paid members a 1-pager that basically lists all the dates and a very brief description of what these field trips are. What I want to tell you all is that none of the invitations have gone out yet for the field trips that remain for this year, except for the August one, which is actually a workshop, and that's full anyway. So you didn't miss anything. The piece that I sent out to you gives you some detail about them. The one thing I'm not sure of is when I sent it, if I had the final field trip of the year, which is November 23rd, that will be the makeup trip for the canceled Sloss Furnace trip we were supposed to do earlier this year. I think that was February. We were supposed to do that. Anyway, that's back on for for the 23rd of November. Otherwise, you've seen the recap of the thing. The one thing I'd love to talk more about, but we'll just have to pick a different meeting when we've got everybody able to hear each other. Nobody in this room could hear you, by the way, Mike, except the
Mm.
handful of people in the front row. But the shootout coming up on November 9th. November 2, we'll be doing the field trip to Berry College, which is kind of a warm up. We'll have fall colors. That'll be our fall colors trip this year, but it'll also double as a recon trip for the shootout, for those who are going to participate in the shootout the following weekend. Absolutely the most fun you can have fully clothed. I always say that. It is totally true. It's just a blast. It's a photographic scavenger hunt. It's driven by the North Georgia Camera Club Council, or NG3C. And it's very well organized. There will be about 200 of us crazy people running around the town with cameras, starting in Barry and then probably spending some time in Rome as well to pick up whatever random topics they come up with that morning at 8 o'clock. They'll give us 5 topics to go chase down, and it's just a hoot. So when we go to Barry the week before that for a little mini field trip, one of the things I'm going to do is throw 3 topics out randomly to the folks who show up for that. I'll give you a little bit of a warm up for what the shootout is like, right? Go find these topics, and you've got until noon, and then maybe we'll have a mini contest or something with that. So that's about it. Dick, where are we going from here? I have a question. No, you work individually in the shootout.
What we did last time, got the 5 topics. We assigned topics to people, so we were sure we covered everything. Right? But yeah, it's club versus club.
It's
But the prizes are individual. Right? I got both 8th and 9th place with one picture. There's a
Yeah.
story there.
Yeah, it's a good question. It is individual competition and a club competition. So there's typically 10 clubs and about 200 people. The clubs are competing against each other, and the individuals are all competing. And so, yeah, and there's prizes and, a lot of fun. Barry will be there cleaning cameras again, cleaning sensors. You can't hear me, but that's what. All right, so that's it.
Okay, and there is a fee for this, but we're gonna cover the fee. So members, paid members, as long as you're a paid member, you can attend this and it's not gonna cost you anything. We have annual dues that I mailed the check yesterday, and I think we pay the rest of it on the day of the event. But watch for further details, but it is a lot of fun. All right, so we're gonna let Brandon Montgomery talk. Not exactly sure what Brandon's talking about today. It was gonna be weather and storm photography, but he may be talking about business and social media with photography, which he's great at. His photography is awesome. You've all seen his work. You know how good he is. Last week, he wasn't able to put a presentation together because he was down in Florida chasing the hurricane. So, Dick, I don't know if you want to share your screen or we just leave it like this.
Yeah, well, let's do a voice check first. Everyone hear me all right?
I can hear you.
I can
Good.
hear you.
Okay, good, good. You never know with these things. But anyway, first off, I wanted to thank Mike Sussman, thank the whole photography club for having me here and for the support through the last few years. Since I've gotten my start doing this in storm chasing and photography, they kind of go hand in hand for me. I started out doing landscapes, really, and that's my main focus throughout the year is doing landscapes. But my passion since I was literally 4, 5, 6 years old has been storm chasing. And, one day it hit me. I said, hey, I'm trying to do landscape photography full time. I'm transitioning into that. I was working at a cabinet shop at the time. And this was around 2020 when I was transitioning and actually got fired from my cabinet job because I wasn't coming into work in time. I was out photographing at night, doing the Milky Way, astrophotography, birds, whatever I could find all day and all night. Then I would leave early. Then my social media started building up and I would go to lunch break and try to respond to these people and let that grow. I would come in late after lunch. I was being a bad boy. So not the right thing to do. I don't always suggest doing that kind of thing. But, if you feel it's your calling and it's something serious you want to get into photography wise and make it more than a hobby, then that's what you do. You just kind of go with it and see what happens. And that's what I did. But anyway, as far as the storm chasing part of it goes, I know that's kind of what we mainly were wanting to discuss this time. There's just a lot that goes into it. And there's so many different elements I could talk about when it comes to chasing and the photography side of storm chasing, which is, of course, what we'd want to talk about here. This is a photography club. And I will just start off by saying there's a lot of challenges involved in storm chasing photography that you usually don't contend with, depending on what you're photographing. But when it comes to storms, you're dealing with wind, lots of wind in a lot of cases. You're dealing with change of wind direction. You're dealing with a lot of rain. Your gear, in a lot of cases, you want weather resistant gear, waterproof gear if you can. Usually, if your lens is not weather sealed, it's no go. Except in certain situations, if you are back at a distance and doing supercell shots, entire structure shots, that's one thing. You can use whatever lens you want in most cases until the storm gets closer, or you start dealing with a lot of fog, a lot of precip. Then you may have to change lenses. You may have to change gear altogether. I try to keep 3 different cameras on hand at all times with the lenses on them already. That way I'm not having to deal with changing lenses. That's important sometimes too. But it depends on what you can afford, what you can do. But anyway, moving on, there's lightning photography, there's tornadoes, there's flooding, there's just so much you can do. There's rainbows after the storm, there's sunset lightning shows, there's incredible supercell structures. Like you've never seen before when you go out to the plains. It's just some things you hardly ever see here in Georgia that when you actually get out there and travel and do the storm chasing portion of this, it's amazing. It's unreal, especially when you spend a month or 2 out there on the road, which is a whole nother subject that could be talked about, I guess, is being on the road and traveling, and that style of photography can be very different, not staying in hotels, sleeping in the car. That's a whole nother deal. But tripod use is important. You want a sturdy tripod. If you don't have stability out there, a lot of times you're at a loss because in most cases you're filming or shooting photos at sunrise, sunset, especially around sunset and late in the day. Your storm will block out your sunlight in a lot of cases, depending on where your storm's located, of course. So you're dealing with very low lighting situations. And in a lot of cases, you're pushing your exposures beyond what you would normally do for landscape photography at that time of the day. So that's something a lot of people may not consider sometimes, is maybe it's 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon. That lighting may be more like 7 in the afternoon or, 8 in the evening, whatever. You're dealing with fading lighting. And so having good stability is important. A camera with a lot of stop stabilization that also syncs with your lens. I'm using the OM1 right now, and it gets 8 stops of stabilization with the 12-100 Mzuko lens. It's a f4 12-100. And being a micro 4/3 camera, you do get an actual 24-200 equivalent focal length, which really helps as well. But anyways, anyone have any questions? And then I'll just keep talking on those points from there, because there's just so much that goes into it. So many different elements to storm chasing.
You find yourself having to crank the ISO pretty high.
I do. And I think most of us as photographers, we generally try to keep that at a minimum for our noise. But nowadays, with the noise reduction programs that we have, it's not such a big deal. So, having the denoise AI in Lightroom now, and I use Lightroom CC to edit all my photos. That's all I use. The only cases I've ever used Photoshop is for astrophotography or trying to blend images, stack photos in those situations. But other than that, all I use is the cloud version of Lightroom to edit. And yes, ISO will have to be cranked up a lot of times in the evenings. But I still try to keep that at a minimum whenever I can, usually 400, 500, 600 or 640 ISO, whatever your camera is going to be at, to get the job done. But yes, you have to crank it up, especially to resist that wind. You know, even on a tripod, the wind is going to shake it. And if you don't have a shutter speed usually of, 1/100th of a second or so, you do risk ruining some of the photos. So
Here's a lightning trigger.
I've got the Lightning Trigger 5,
That's what I was gonna ask, a lightning trigger, Pluto or,
and that is what the trigger looks like.
Okay.
But it is not weather resistant. Why they make it that way, I don't know. But so far it has held up. I haven't got it, submerged in water, so to speak, but it has been rained on quite a bit.
I think we have an idea if we do.
Yes. And the thing is, for it not being weather sealed, it's $400. And it's light. You can tell it's cheap. It's well made in the as far as how it works. It works great. It does work great overall. You still don't get every lightning shot that you can get.
How do you use?
Well, there's a singular mode. It's called single mode, and I call it more mode. There's an S and an M. I use the S. It seems to work better. That's all it is. It's off, S, and M. Both of them work pretty decently. The S mode is supposed to capture every flash that it detects, which in my opinion is going to give you a better chance at getting that shot of any lightning strike. The other one is supposed to be the step leader, and it's supposed to detect lightning when it first comes out of the ground for cloud to ground strikes. But the other one will really detect everything and capture it.
So can you?
have you tried like a Pluto trigger or anything like that before?
Shots?
Uh, well, you can, if you can stack those images as long as you're on tripod and you're in one spot, you can stack all those images. If you have a camera that's capable of doing that in camera, you could. But yeah, I don't know, there's just so much you can do out there with the lightning trigger. But at night, I will say this, when it gets dark and it's almost completely dark at night, I remove the lightning trigger and I no longer photograph lightning with the trigger, because you're able to do a long enough exposure at that point that you actually get more lightning in your shot, and you're more liable to get the lightning you want without the trigger than you are with it, because the trigger has to detect the lightning, and it doesn't detect all the strikes in time. It does miss quite a few lightning strikes. Usually I start with the SPC, the Storm Prediction Center, and you can just type in Storm Prediction Center SPC forecasting on Google, and it will bring you to the SPC forecast, and you'll basically have, I think it's three to 4 days that it will show. So it shows day 1, which is the day you're on, day 2, day 3, day 4, and it gives you a general thunderstorm risk area. And then it goes up from there. It's meant for severe weather forecasting. And so you'll have a general thunderstorm area, and then a marginal area if you have a marginally severe area, and then a slight risk severe area, and it goes up from there all the way up to enhanced. So I look at those maps to target in general usually. And then that's what I use to go out to the field. And then when I'm in the field, I typically use actual weather models through Pivotal, pivotal.com. And you can go on there and check various weather models, including the NAM, the HRRR, they call the HER. And also now there is the rapid refresh model as well, that works really good. And they're all different. They all have their own ideas on what the weather's going to do. Typically during typical severe weather season, April to June, you want to check the HRRR. It's usually your most reliable weather model overall. That does change, and sometimes that changes from year to year. Sometimes the NAM will kind of take ahead for a while and be the leader on that. But HRRR in general gives you a very good idea. It will actually basically show you what the radar is supposed to look like in the future. So you check on composite reflectivity. And I know it gets confusing. There's a lot in there to look at. But I just go to composite reflectivity, which basically is a future radar, and check where those storms appear to develop, when they appear to mature, your general direction of the storms, and then you figure out your positioning from there. And in a lot of cases, you want to be off to the southeast of the storms. If they're moving more to the northeast, you want to stay more due east and jog with them to the northeast. If they're moving southeast, southeast movers produce tornadoes more than other storms do. If they're southeast movers, be ready to jog southeast. So you just got to look into all those models and figure it out. It's a lot, but it's fun. There's so much to it. And that's the thing. There's so much to it more than just the photography. And the photography is what is the pride and joy of it, though, because you get to see the end result of all that work that you've put into it, all the time you've put into the forecasting and the miles you put in, the gas money you put in to do this. I think I did right about 26,000 miles in 2 months this year.
Are you from
Sounds familiar, I think. Okay.
Put one out in his last 4 weeks. He was storm chasing in the Midwest. Started in Denver and went to, I don't know.
He ended up in
Colorado,
Iowa.
Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, et cetera.
Right.
Yeah, I watched
Comment
that.
it was the best, most fun he ever had photographing, and he's traveled all over the world. It was
Yeah.
the most fun he ever had.
Oh, yes, there's nothing like it. There really is nothing like storm chasing. It's just, and the danger element part of it, who doesn't have fun with dangerous stuff? So,
Brandon, repeat the question so the folks can hear.
yeah,
When people ask, repeat the question.
yeah. Can you say it again? I'll go ahead and.
Thank you.
Go.
Screen.
Oh,
No, what people are asking is, when we ask the question here, they're not hearing it online. They would like Brandon to repeat the question, so they know what he's talking about.
Get a question for one.
oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I can do that. Oh, yes, yeah.
We may not do 26,000 miles.
Exactly.
The best way to get out there and photograph the house. We talked about a storm that we had back in 2014 that had to do from Netherlands.
Right.
That's I listened to crappy branches all night long, but I thought about going out there. Cool.
Right. Yeah. Okay, we just had a question on storm chasing locally, because, it's a good point that most people are not going to be traveling between Mexico and Canada all spring to find these storms. But there are plenty of storms here locally. And as far as that goes, the local part of storm chasing or storm photography, around here, you're going to be dealing mostly with lightning. And like you said, flooding can be interesting, especially in the mountains when you're dealing with waterfalls and stuff. A lot of times you can check the radar. I use radar scope, and I will check where storms are training. And, so they call it training, where storms line up basically, or they can sit stationary and dump a lot of rain in one area. But in a lot of cases, they keep back building. The storms will continue to develop on the backside. It's almost like a conveyor belt. And if they do that over the right watersheds, over, let's just say Amicalola Falls, for example, that area can get some pretty serious flooding sometimes, flash flooding. And that's something you can really focus on here in North Georgia is paying attention to your rainfall rates. And you can simply see it on radar and pay attention to flash flood warnings, or you can use radar scope, which you can do dual screens. And you can look at the radar on one, and down below you can have your total storm total accumulation, which will give you an array. It'll show you basically on the map where your rainfall rates have been the heaviest. And it will estimate 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5, 6, 7, 8+ inches of rain, whatever has fallen there. It'll estimate it usually very closely, and you can get an idea on where to go, see if those are setting up over a good watershed for waterfalls. Even if it's not raining at the waterfall, if it rains upstream of there over that entire watershed, or even just a portion of it, if it's 6, 7, 8 inches, that waterfall is going to take off. So that's good for extreme waterfall photography. Sometimes kayakers get in there and that can be entertaining. Some of the larger streams and waterfalls, kayakers will go down them when they're flooded because there's no other times they can go down. And as far as lightning goes around here, you can always check. There's a lot of lightning apps out there. Radar Scope is another one that will show you the lightning frequency, and it will actually show all the positive bolts that are hitting the ground on Radar Scope. So that's a good one to check and get an idea for that. Like I say, daytime photography, you want a lightning trigger. If you're dealing with really bright conditions with lightning, sometimes the trigger is not going to cut it. And even if it captures it, if your background behind where the lightning strikes is too bright, you're probably not going to get the best image. Your lightning's not going to show up too well, even with the trigger. And even if it does capture it, unless you're dealing with the perfectly dark background, you're going to struggle with that a little bit. So I typically wait until evening, sunset, and if the storm is in the right location and kind of blocking most of the sunlight from hitting the storm or showing behind the storm, that's when you want to use the lightning trigger and get those lightning shots. And then, of course, at night, late evening, going into the night, that's when it starts to get easier. You can get rid of the lightning trigger, get rid of it altogether, and just start doing 5, 10, 15, 20-second exposures. The one thing I will say is if you do 15, 20-second exposures or longer and you're dealing with a fast-moving storm, and if you're getting frequent lightning, it's going to start to look weird because every time your lightning strikes, it basically lights up your whole storm structure and you get kind of like a stair-stepped looking storm structure. It's every time it strikes, the storm has moved a little. So you want to keep that exposure down maybe around 10 seconds, give or take, a lot of times, so that you're not getting, for one, sometimes too many bolts in the photo or too much exposure to deal with, and you actually end up overexposing the photo with too long of an exposure, and your storm can move too much. So frequent lightning, keep that exposure down lower.
I have a question. How do you protect your vehicles?
Well, yeah. Another question is, how do we protect the vehicles? And that's a good question. A lot of us as storm chasers, we really don't. We like our storm damage to an extent. If the vehicle flips over, that's another story. We don't want that happening, but we do get hail damage occasionally. But usually you can avoid that. If you know what you're doing out there, you can avoid hail damage for the most part. Sometimes if you're willing to risk it all and drive through the cores of the storm where the hail occurs, then you're going to end up with some hail damage. Once that hail gets up to around golf ball size or larger, you're going to start to see problems. That's when you start busting windshields and you start getting big dents in the car. And I've got a few of those. I've had to replace the windshield after this spring. I went all out and said, you know what, I'm getting this structure. It's my last storm of the season, and I'm going to do it. But I will say, when it comes to tornadoes, when it comes to storms that are either producing tornadoes or very capable of it, and you're dealing with what they call RFD, which comes around the circulation of the storm, the RFD cut can actually flip a car over. And that wind can be 90 to 120 miles per hour coming around where either the tornado is or would be. And that can cause some big problems. If your car is not positioned right, it can flip it over. or worse, and just keep flipping through a field. And people have been killed doing that. And it's very rare, but it can happen.
I was in the Joplin tornado
Oh, you were?
and, we were heading back to the vehicles alongside the interstates. It was unbelievable. It looked like Armageddon.
Oh,
It was,
it's
you know, semi, it was crazy.
a vehicle is one of the last places you want to be in a tornado. It's also the main place you want to be to find one. So it's definitely something you don't want to risk too much or go into it not knowing at least some of what you're doing. I will say though, anyone that's interested in chasing tornadoes, you shouldn't be afraid of doing it, but just start off at a safe distance. You know, start off from a good distance. Out in the plains, you can see a long ways. A lot of these storms, you do have to be in the right position though to see the tornado. It can get wrapped in rain, just like it does very often down here in the South, in Dixie Alley, they call it. Most of the tornadoes end up rain wrapped down here, except in certain situations. Some setups, they don't. But yeah, just play it safe at first, because even if you're looking for tornadoes, I can promise you the storm structure is almost as amazing, if not just as amazing as seeing a tornado. It's just amazing to watch it.
So tell us about that strange looking black vehicle that you and some of the guys use when you're out west. It's a really low thing with a.
The Dominator 3. Yeah.
Yes, that. Tell us about that thing.
Yeah, well, somebody's asking about the Dominator 3 now, that crazy tornado intercept vehicle. So I'll talk about that for a second. He's kind of become a good friend of mine now, Reed Timmer. Some of you may have seen the show Storm Chasers on Discovery Channel some years ago. It was 2010 through 2013, I think, that show was on air. But I've gotten to be friends with him, which was kind of a dream come true for me, watching him, you know, when I was in high school and out of high school, because he was doing this before Discovery Channel as well. But anyways, it's been really cool to get to know Reed Timmer and the crew and so many other chasers out there, part of Team Twistex, which, as you know, the main part of the team out there, a lot of you may know they were actually rolled and killed in El Reno, one of the few situations where professional storm chasers were killed. And that was in 2013. But to get to know these people and to be friends with people that I grew up watching through the years was really, really something. And to be able to get in that intercept vehicle, the Dominator 3, and take a ride in that and watch them do their first tornado intercept from getting it back. See, there was a man in Canada bought all 3 of the Dominators from that show that he had. And he actually went up and purchased all those back from him. So it had been a few years between their last tornado intercepts and these intercepts. So it was cool to be there on their first new intercepts in that vehicle. And that actually occurred up in Spalding, Nebraska last year. That was, I think, late April. I think it was late April last year. I used to be able to keep up with dates and stuff, and now I've seen so much. I've just forgotten so much now. I can't remember hardly anything.
Well, you're getting older too. You know.
Yeah, that's happening too. I try not to let myself be aware of that. You know, got to stay young and sharp. But
So does that thing actually work better? I mean, is it?
it does. It does anchor into the ground. It has hydraulic anchors that go into the ground. So there's spikes. And when they did the Spalding, Nebraska intercept, they actually parked it in the road, paved highway, and deployed the spikes. They actually went into the pavement, not very far, but they did go into the pavement, enough to help resist some of that wind. Now, the only tornadoes they're really able to intercept in that somewhat safely are ones out in the open plains with very little in the way of debris. Because the debris is typically the most dangerous part of the tornado. Of course, the wind itself, if it's strong enough, can kill you, but it's the debris that usually will injure you or worse, kill you. It's what's in the air flying around. That's what you really got to worry about. And something large enough could hit, a tornado intercept vehicle such as the Dominator 3. If it hits, does damage, or just knocks it off kilter, that could be the end. Once it starts to flip, once it gets air underneath it, that's when you have big problems. And so that's the main point of the spikes. Is also why they pay very close attention to what tornadoes they plan to intercept. And in some cases, they'll go out for an intercept and see the tornado and then back off and decide not to intercept it, seeing that there's too many trees. It may have just gone through a forest. There may be a lot of power poles that it's gone through or something like that. Farm equipment, buildings, anything like that, it's a no-go usually to get in for intercept on that. There's also dual plane bulletproof glass in there. So they've actually got two windows that roll up, and it's plexiglass on the front and the windshield and the back. They have a weather station up top, and the doors are also hydraulic, and they lock closed and they seal closed. And it's quite the tank. It's something.
So when you say intercept, do you mean literally wind up in the funnel?
Inside the tornado. And most tornadoes are multi-vortex. By far, the majority of tornadoes are multi-vortex, meaning that they have several vortexes inside of them. So basically, you're dealing with 3, 4, 6 tornadoes, so to speak, inside that tornado. In a lot of cases, you don't see those because the tornado is so condensated with moisture or full of debris. So you're not seeing those vortexes, the multi-vortexes inside it. But in a lot of cases, you can see them if it's weaker, or if it's just touched down, or if it's over just strictly a cornfield or something like that, where there's not a ton of debris and dirt, dust getting lofted up. If it's wet ground, a lot of times when they first touch down, you can see the multiple vortices on the ground. And that's what does the primary damage in a tornado, are those vortices, and not so much the parent circulation.
You can't actually shoot during any one of those vortices whatever there.
Well, if you're inside the TIV or the tornado intercept vehicles, you can. You could photograph in there, but it would be very, very hectic. For the most part, they focus on strictly video, getting footage, and of course, the scientific side of it for them is very important too. For me, I'm there mainly for the photographic side of things. But they do collect a lot of research, just getting in there, a lot of information that goes into the research for tornado development.
Are they?
Video, yes. I work for Severe Studios, and they pitch the videos and in some cases photos, but typically they want video. And good video at that, if you can get it. They want the best video that they can get. And Severe Studios will pitch it out to CNN, the Weather Channel, and ABC and Fox News and Fox Weather and those kind of things. AccuWeather usually does their own thing. Sometimes they'll buy them. But yeah, it's mainly a video type of thing when you're out there chasing as far as the sales go. Photos can be more difficult to sell to news networks, but they will occasionally buy them. Usually they want them for free. They want everything for free if they can get away with it. So.
Now you work, you shut. You ever shoot with him, all those guys around Sarasota?
I never have, no. It sounds familiar. Power sounds familiar.
He does lightning.
Okay. Yeah, lightning's really just a lot of fun. I like lightning because you can do it here as much as you can anywhere, and tornadoes are hard to come by down here in the South. So it's
okay with me.
Yeah, well,
Just saying.
and they can happen pretty frequently, and you can get big outbreaks, but spotting them, dealing with the road network here, dealing with the traffic, the trees, the usually rain wrapping that goes on, it is difficult. That's not to say I won't do it, because I've tried it and I have a friend that's pretty good at it. But really, you need a drone down here. You need to focus on drone photography if you're going to be storm chasing tornadoes down here. That way you can get above the trees. You can find yourself in a safer location and a quicker escape route with the drone than you ever will on the ground here. So. Or basement.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you get good enough reception, you can fly your drone from there. So.
There you go.
So do you always drive out or everywhere you go, or do you fly sometimes? And if you do fly, do you load every single piece of your equipment through the airport, or do you check some of it?
I have never flown. We just, the question we just had is, do I drive? I'm sorry, I forgot to remark the question earlier. But I just got asked if I drive or if I fly to some of these locations, and I strictly drive. I have never flown, at least yet. I'm sure that'll happen at some point in the future, but I enjoy having everything that I need and knowing that it's there, where it's at. And that's why I stick to the car. And it's a lot. It's a lot of miles. Like I say, I did about 26,000 in 2 months. And that was from Texas to North Dakota to Wyoming, back down, back and forth, Iowa, Nebraska, Illinois, chased Illinois a lot this year. And that's just the main season too. That's not including the miles put into random chases before the main season to Illinois and Oklahoma and Kansas and back to Georgia. And then sometimes you're here a few days and you turn around and go back to Kansas or something. And then I go to the Blue Ridge Parkway and shoot that, and then turn around and do it again. I'm just always, you've got to be obsessed with it. You got to have a passion to really do it. It's not for everyone, that's for sure. We'll say that. It wears me out even. There's times I'm like, I don't know if I really want to keep doing this to this degree, but I keep doing it. So we'll see how long I last. But anybody else?
I have a question about your SUVs.
Mhm.
Use them like hotel rooms, basically. Do you have your, is it set up just more like a camper van, or do you have like photographer specific setup in there? Something that another photographer might benefit from.
Okay. No, that's a great question. Just got asked about the setup that I use in an SUV or any personal vehicle. How do I keep it set up in there to live in there and do photography? Mine personally, I have a good comfortable bed. It's got like 4 or 5 layers of memory foam underneath it. And then I've got a sleeping bag, and I've got a comforter and an extra sleeping bag and a sheet. And that way, in case you get a strong cold front you're not expecting, you can stay plenty warm in there. I never have gotten cold. I've slept at minus 10 degrees in the car without ever running the heat. Just enough cover. And you put your head under there periodically. If you wake up, your head's cold, put your head under there for a little while. Your breathing really warms it up, and your head, and you're usually good to go there. I also now have a microwave in there, and well, let me start with the box. I have a little electric box. It's basically a portable generator, power supply box, they call it. And that can power a microwave. It's smaller than a microwave, the box itself. And it can power a microwave. It can power a coffee maker, like a Keurig, and a heated blanket. I used it this winter with the heated blanket, which made things very nice. And that only pulls usually around 50, 60 watts. So you can run that all night, 2 nights, 3 nights probably, before you'd have to charge the box, just running the heated blanket. So having the ability to run those things is great. And as far as the photography part, I also have a drawer underneath the bed. We built a bed frame, my dad and I. We had a bed frame made out of plywood. There's a drawer underneath it. I keep all my clothing and winter weather gear and things like that in there. Ponchos, waders, if you're dealing with floods and that kind of thing. But as far as the photography equipment goes, I do have like a cop bag, basically, that sits in the passenger seat. And basically, since I never had passengers, it stays locked onto the passenger seat. And there's a snap that you can, snap it around the back of the seat. And all my camera gear is stored there. And I just hope no one ever steals it. But I keep a blanket or a pillow that's in the back. I'll usually throw that over the bag when I go in somewhere. But it's basically set up with pockets. I have my wildlife lens that reaches out to 800 millimeters. I got it on the camera in the main compartment. The front one has my little tiny wide angle lens on it, which gives me 12 millimeters. equivalent. And then the other one, it goes from 12 to 100. And that one stays above it in another bag. So everything is there ready to grab all the time. So all my camera gear is ready to go. I have plenty, my chargers are all set up there next to the bag. They're always constantly plugged in. I've got a power inverter there that can run the laptop so I can do my editing, which I wait for it to get dark to do. I also have curtains now that are run like on a string you can buy. I can't remember what they're called, but they're nice. So when you're sleeping at a truck stop or something like that, that's usually heavily lit, you can close those and get some privacy and get it darker in there. And it can cover all the way around the vehicle, all the windows, and seals it up pretty good. So yeah, keeping batteries charged and having plenty of spare batteries is important. We all know that. I'm sure people have left batteries at home on some occasions, or SD cards. You always want spares of those. And I try to keep it fairly organized, know where it's at all times. But yeah, just having all that equipment there at hand in the seat next to you or wherever you can fit it is very important when you do chasing or any other photography for that matter. Being ready for wildlife. You know, if you're sitting there photographing a supercell and it's lightning too much and you're having to get back in the car and then a hawk comes by and you want to get a shot of that, just grab your long lens. But yeah, it's all about convenience and practicality when you're out there and you're not staying in a hotel. Sometimes you're going to need a break and you're going to have to get a hotel. Sometimes it's going to be too hot at night. Once it gets to around 80 degrees or so at night, it gets rough. And especially after a few nights of that, you know, but I try to conserve as best I can, not spend money on hotels. That gives me one more day out there. Every time I don't get a hotel, that's another day or two that I'm able to stay out on the road and keep going.
Question down there about media,
Okay.
media wanting videos.
Yes, let's see. It was mentioned, okay, here's the question here. It was mentioned that media wants videos. Is that providing a full income, or if not, is this monetized otherwise? Now, that's a good question. You know, a lot of chasers, they do try to make that kind of their primary income as far as the storm chasing part of this goes. A lot of them do focus primarily on the video selling part of it. So you can do that, at least to an extent. And a lot of these chasers do have part-time jobs, and they will, you know, work half of the year during the main, let's just say summer to early spring. They'll usually work somewhere and then they go chase, most of them. Some of us are crazy enough to stay out there and just keep photographing things and chasing whenever you can, if you can afford to do that. Everyone's in a different situation, family-wise, and, you know, depending on their expenses, of course, makes a big deal. But for me, I don't have a whole lot of stuff to pay for. So that helps me be able to do this. Not just anybody can just take off and do this, and I understand that. Also, it takes a lot of energy out of you to be able to do this too. But yes, you can do that. You probably could make that happen if you put all of your effort into doing videos and pitching it out. It helps to have someone like Severe Studios to help get that out there for you. Although you can do it yourself, or you can use Storyful. A lot of people use Storyful. They go through them, and you know, but they all take a portion of the money that you make. Usually it's 40 to 60%, somewhere in there. So you're still only getting a cut of that. And then, so it's still a struggle. Another way to make money when you're out there is through social media. And when you start to get enough of a following, social media can start to bring in some money. And it's not a lot in my case. In some cases it is. Like Reed Timmers has 3 million followers, I think, on Facebook, and another 1 million or 2 million on YouTube. And you can make a living off YouTube alone, for example, if you are conservative. So social media becomes important as well. The following for social media can be extremely important. And so I try to stay focused on that. Some months I may only bring in about $300-400 a month. Other months I may hit it big, get a couple viral posts and bring in 1,500 or 2,000 in a month. But that's rare. It's hard to do. And a lot of it's just up to Facebook and their algorithm. It's hard to control. You can't control that. Some things have taken off for no apparent reason. You know, a post will just go nuts for no reason. It'll get 10,000 likes, 20,000, like, oh, for some reason, the algorithm picked up on it. I mean, that's not to say that you don't need good quality content, because you do, but some of it is just under Facebook's control, and you just never know what's really going to take off. But yes, I would say that you probably could do full-time income off of video sales to media networks, but you just have to focus on that very, very heavily. Yes, just got asked about the research data that a lot of chasers do, and a lot of chasers actually chase for research purposes primarily. And do they sell that? You know, not really. They do get grants. A lot of them do get grants from different colleges and things like that. And a lot of them, OU would be your primary college. Mississippi State University is actually a big meteorology college, and I think some of that goes to them as well. So it's mainly Mississippi and Oklahoma. Norman, Oklahoma, is also the head of the National Weather Service, and that is where it's headquartered, there in Norman. So, you know, of course, OU being right there, that's a big deal for them. They're the biggest weather college, so to speak, weather related, whether it be chasing or data gathering, radar tech and that kind of thing. That's where you want to go for that. But yeah, it's a lot of it is grants. A lot of it's grants. Anyone else?
This has been very enjoyable. I really like hearing what you have to say.
I hope I'm not going too all over the place. Well, good. Well, no, you're welcome. I mean, there's just so much. I could go on and probably become like a broken record at some point too, but there's just so much to it. There's so many different elements to it, as far as the driving part, the car maintenance, the living on the road, the skipping out on this and that to be able to stay out there another day, the whole photography part of it, the gear, just the time that goes into it. There's just a lot.
Got another question as well.
I try. Yeah, I had a question whether the auto insurance, does the auto insurance cover anything? Well, I typically try to avoid using them except when I really have to use them. So, you know, a major accident or something like that. Otherwise, usually I cover the expenses. You know, I don't want that going over and then be like, hey, what are you doing out here? Now, like the last time, see, I try to avoid hail and not destroy windshields. And that way, you know, if I do destroy one, that one does get accidentally destroyed, then sometimes I may use that. But typically I cover the cost of that instead, and I try to keep damage at a minimum. As far as body damage, those are my trophies. When I hit hail, I'm proud to get hail dents, and I like them. So yes, yeah. Getting a good intercept vehicle or chase vehicle is important, and I have a police intercept vehicle, a Ford Explorer 2016, and getting something that's kind of already beefed up, so to speak. Everything is kind of beefed up in there. It's even got a crash bar in it, which is a $10,000 upgrade. And so if you get rear-ended, it's supposed to protect you a lot. And, you know, it's a good idea to have that when you're on the road all the time. I got the whole vehicle for $11,500 with $99,000 on it. And they're just tough vehicles overall. So getting something that you can kind of rely on is important out there too.
You got two questions online.
All right, we got two questions here on the screen. Let's see. Have you ever tried full spectrum cameras? Let's see. appreciable infrared or UV and lightning. I never have. I never have tried that. I will say, as far as ND filters go and that kind of thing, I know this isn't really an answer to that, but I've never tried that. ND filters, a lot of people would think an ND filter might help to lengthen your exposure time for lightning during the daylight. The problem is during daylight hours, lightning just becomes basically invisible once you put an ND filter on there. Usually the lightning is almost gone, so you can't hardly see it. But yeah, I'm not sure on that one. Our other questions here, how many tripods have you gone through? Which is the best brand? Right now I'm using a Manfrotto. I can't remember what model it is, but it is not the twist type. I will say that you want the kind of, y'all might know.
Flip block.
The flip block. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, the flip block type of tripod, that's what you want. It's much quicker to deploy. If you have to twist to get the legs out, it's usually a lot longer time. And in a lot of cases, when you're chasing, you want to be able to deploy that tripod as fast as possible. I will also say that having some sort of weight or using even a heavy camera setup is not a bad thing when you're chasing. In a lot of cases, if you have a heavy camera with a wide angle lens for doing supercells, it's probably not a bad call, because the more weight you can have out there, the better when you're storm chasing. And again, stability is important. I will say that with having 8 stops of stability now with my camera setup, most of the time I don't use a tripod anymore with anything I do, even waterfalls. I try to hand hold everything, and it just gives me room to make whatever composition I can think up. And I try to also dedicate myself to the shot, which I feel like a tripod can help you do. It makes you think, which is not bad. So I try to always put it in my mind, okay, think you have a tripod, but don't have a tripod, because it just opens up so many different elements to your photo, different foregrounds. And I love foregrounds in my photos. It makes the photo to me. And it's the same with storm chasing. You may want a certain fence in the foreground. There may be a sunflower or something in there, and that can really add to a lightning shot, back behind. And if it's in the evening and you're able to hold that camera still, you can still get a lightning shot with the lightning trigger. Just move that camera, hand hold it where you want it, keep it still till that lightning hits. Review your image real quick, see if you got it. If you didn't, wait, just keep going. But yeah, trying to get good foregrounds sometimes can be impossible with a tripod to get where you need to get. But yes, if you don't have the stability that you need, like, let's just say, for example, 7.5, 8 stops or something that you can get away with hand holding, the heavier to the tripod and the quicker you can deploy it. That's what I would look into for storm chasing. In fact, I thought about making like an iron tripod that somehow snaps to the side of the car, that I can connect to the side of the vehicle, that I can deploy quickly, that will not move. So,
For you.
yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
I want, do you have
I
any
have
spill?
a question.
Just had one more question here. Have I ever used film? No, I have not. Thankfully, and now it would be fun. I'm sure it would be an interesting challenge. But thankfully, I did grow up when digital was coming out. And in fact, my dad had bought one of those Sony floppy disk cameras. I don't remember what the model was, but some of you probably used one or you've seen them. But it took a floppy disk. And I thought that was, nowadays that's pretty funny, but in the pictures were pretty awful, really, quality wise. But it was fun to use. It helped get me into photography even more. That was probably back in the late 90s, I want to say, when those were out. And then moved on up to a little Kodak digital camera, and then had a little Samsung pocket digital camera. And it wasn't until I got the Nikon P900 that I started to get into it more. And then finally the Canon 80D that I bought off of Jim Durfee. And I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard or seen Jim Durfee stuff. I'm really good friends with him. Most of my camera gear I bought from him, from the 80D to my 5D Mark IV, to all of my cameras now, except for the OM1. I bought that one myself, the one I have here, but the two OMD EM1 Mark IIIs, I bought both of those from him. So we've become good buddies, and I've learned a lot from Jim as well. Jim Durfee's really good.
One more question.
All right. See, Mike Sussman here. Do you shoot in RAW? Yes, that is the only thing I shoot in now. I used to shoot RAW plus JPEG, but I found out over time I don't ever touch those JPEGs. There's just no need in it. In theory, I thought, well, if I shoot RAW plus JPEG, then I have the JPEG image. I can quickly post that or quickly get it out there real fast, or maybe do a quick edit on it. And because with RAWs, you can't just transfer it straight to your phone right away. JPEGs, you can. If you have an app or whatever for your camera, you can just quickly get it over there and maybe post it. But to me, if you're dealing with JPEGs, period, you're kind of ruining, in my opinion, and this is, everybody's got a different opinion. And if you're happy with your photography, that's all that matters, first and foremost. But if you're just dealing with JPEGs and you're trying to get something out there quick, and then you want to go and edit a RAW photo later, you're just kind of ruining it for you and everyone else, in my opinion, for the capabilities of that image. You don't want to post something, hey, look at what I saw. Oh yeah, it's cool. That's really cool. And then go, work your RAW image later in the day or the next day or next week, whenever you get to it, and then say, here's what it, really looked like or should have looked like, or, this is how cool it actually was, and by then everybody's like, man, you edited that too much, or that doesn't look real, or, compared to the other. And, a lot of people also ask, how much do you process your photos? How much do you edit? And I try to keep it at a minimum. I really do. And I'm hoping to post soon. I'm thinking about taking the time to remember to download my original photo before I touch it, and then putting that somewhere where I can post that later. And I want to do a side-by-side comparison of my edits and post them that way on Facebook, so people can see the difference in the editing and what it brings out. Because even though you're dealing with a raw image and you think what you're looking at is what it looked like, in a lot of cases it's not. Almost any case, when you look at a raw image off the camera, it is a lot more bland than it actually was in person. The details aren't there that you saw in person. That's why you process your photos. You got to bring out the clarity. You got to bring out contrast, whatever, especially with supercells and cloud structures. The raw photo really helps to bring that out, the structure, instead of it looking more uniform, so to speak. But, add a little saturation if you need to. I've learned with the OM1, I usually don't saturate at all, believe it or not. The raw files off of the OM1 for some reason are very saturated looking, and perfectly saturated, in my opinion, to the point you at least don't have to saturate at all. You never have to hit that bar.
Guess that's it.
Well, good.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Brandon. I wish I had been in there, but I don't want to get anybody sick, but very, very interesting. Even just looking at a screen that doesn't change. So thanks so much. I appreciate you coming in.
I was looking forward to seeing you here.
We need the hotspot.
Yeah.
And I'll mention, I met you through Jim Durfee. We were shooting up at Notley Lake, and that's how I met you. So
Yes, you did. Yep. That was, when was that? That was probably 3 years ago or 4 years ago now.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Probably about 2021, I think. So.
Yeah. Speaking of Notley Lake, I've gotten a lot of shots there.
Oh yeah. I love going through them.
Pictures are just unbeatable at Notley Lake sometimes. Now the people have gotten, so used to going there, and it's so popular that Jim Durfee hardly ever goes there anymore. So it's gotten to be too popular for him. So
yeah, that's why we don't do club trips anymore there, because we don't have enough space.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
It
big
would have to
problem.
be a secret trip if we
Right.
did that.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Brandon, and definitely very interesting. Definitely appreciate you coming down, and glad that you were had a safe trip. And we look forward to seeing what comes up next.
OM systems.
All right. So now we are going to go and start our photo challenge. And so I'm going to turn it over to Lisa and Michael. I'll run the slideshow, but Lisa, I will let you do the talking, and then Michael doing the critiquing.
All right, can you hear me okay? At least those of you online?
I can hear you.
Okay. Our photo challenge this month is the theme beach. And we had 14 entries this month, popular topic. I'll let you go to the next slide, Mike, and we'll talk a little bit about entering the monthly photo challenge. If you're a member, you can enter one photo per month per challenge. Your photo needs to be not any older than 2 years from the month of the challenge. Keep an eye on that. Every now and then we have people that edit old images, and we do look at your metadata to make sure that it meets that rule. There's a Dropbox link that's posted in the meeting notice, and Dropbox links are also listed on our website. So you can submit your photos basically anytime during the year for any of the monthly challenges. The deadline for submission is 8 o'clock the Monday night of the meeting week. And that's so that we can get those photos to our judge for the month. We use an independent judge, and it's a completely anonymous judging, so that judge can provide very good positive critiques for all of our images, and then that judge selects his or her choice of the 5 winning images. We award points throughout the year for first through 5th place. And those points are accumulated during the year, and the photographer with the most points at the end of the year wins our photographer of the year. And we also this year started having a monthly winner, so that first place winner each month will receive a $15 gift card. And we'll go ahead and get into our 14 photos for the month. Michael Gagne is our judge this month, and he's going to give you a quick recap on each of the photos that he went through. And then when he's finished, I'll announce who won this month.
And for those who don't know Michael, he is one of the people who runs our weekly challenge on the online page. So definitely someone very qualified for critiquing. So go ahead, Michael.
Well, I hope you all go easy on me. This is the first time I've done any of this kind of judging, but I actually love critiquing work, and I also welcome feedback and critique on my own work too. So I hope I don't, I hope makes some people smile, and I hope I don't offend anybody else. But looking at this first image, it it caught my eye right away. And what I like about it is the diagonal aspect of the birds in line. I like the color, the contrast of the sand, and then the differentiation between the surf and the water. And one thing I've always called myself, I call it visual tension. So if I had to provide any critique on this photo, it would be that for me, I feel like the birds are a little too close to the edge. It's like I would like just a little bit more height to the right, just that little bit more space where their wingtips are hitting the edge of that composition. But I like this one. And this one is, you guys can tell me or not, I've never really shot film. Is that a simulated film, or is this actually shot on film? Anybody have an idea? No, it's film. Somebody just typed in. Okay. I love the smooth tones of this and how the water kind of softened in the reflection, and then there's also some movement to the image. It just totally reminds me of like a blue hour shot when you're, going for a walk on the beach. Or I can't tell where this one is. A lot of fishing piers look similar. And as far as the horizon line looks good. There was another one where I was going to say something about the horizon line, but I would have liked a little more. The foreground is a little empty, and I don't know what I would like there, but that's something I noticed, is that the contrast is very heavy to the top, the darker contrast. Okay. This one is a mood. I really liked it, and it really caught my eye because of the stark contrast. You don't, those colors on a beach, and I think I zoomed in before, it said Miami Beach on it, but I like how those colors don't seem like they should go together and have some kind of harmony, but I think because of the mood, the colors in the sunset, the day, I can't even tell if it's sunrise or sunset, but I really liked it. I can't say anything bad about this one. Not that anything's bad, but I'm trying to offer something to critique. Maybe a little bit more elevation in the shadows of that structure, or the sand a little bit. But yeah, I really like this one. And Mike, just to take a quick step here, is this what you're expecting from?
Yeah, yeah. Constructive criticism, positive criticism, what you've noticed, what you think would improve the picture, and what you like about it, that kind of thing. So you're doing good.
This one is well, I almost call it classic. You know, you go to the beach with a friend or family, and you just sit there and you enjoy the sun going down. And I like the hands. It's a very personal image, and it probably means, I think, more to the people that either this person is or the person taking the photo. The only thing, as far as again, I mentioned that visual tension, the hand of the thumbs really close to the surf line, not so much the head, but the surf line in that space. I don't know if I would have tried to elevate or lower the camera to get either one or the other, like all sand, more sand or more water. And there's a shadow from bottom left curving in. I couldn't figure out what it was, but it caught my eye. Now this one, I love how vibrant it is, and how bright it is. And I did notice the horizon is pretty much splitting the image, top and bottom. So you've got all the sky happening above and the foreground elements, and then that globe flipping that around is really neat. And I wasn't sure how, I was always wondering how posed this was. You know, are these elements, were they there? I know the globe was kind of must have been put in there, but the other stuff, was it just a serendipitous, like, oh, I found this, or were these elements placed there? Overall, I like it. I like how the blue rope kind of mimics and supports the blue sky. There's the greens and then the sand. This is a nice image. This one just makes me like, I feel like I'm outside at a tiki bar. Beautiful sunset. I love the silhouette. A sunset silhouetted, palm trees. Even though I live in Georgia, we have a palm tree at the end of our driveway. So, and my wife's a beach person, so this one kind of hits me where we live. I don't think it needs to be. I love the silhouette aspect. It's unfortunate the sailboat was kind of behind the tree on that left side, when a bunch of the other ones are kind of on their own between the trees. And I know it's an event, when the sun goes down in a place that is as beautiful as this, you see the crowd, and that's what happens. They go and do that. I just learned about that in Key West this spring. And now knowing that, at first I was going to say I would have liked to have seen less people, but now that I recall that moment, I enjoy looking at this photo. This one I would love to know where it is. But I like how you're being led deeper into the image. With it has some leading lines with the I guess that's seaweed. I almost thought it was all rocks at first, but I guess it's kind of a kelp kind of situation along with some rocks. And I like how the lightness of the sand kind of funnels toward the larger rock formation right in the middle of the photo. I don't know what could have been done differently as far as the whether there was an ND filter used or not, but maybe dealing with the sun to try and get maybe some rays coming out of that, or lighten up that. I know it's in direct shadow, but maybe try to get in there and lighten up that rock structure a little bit, see some more detail. I like this one. This one made me feel like sometimes you go to the beach and you want to relax and just let things drain away, just, you know, feel better. This one, in addition to that, makes me feel energized as well at the same time. And I think a big part of that is the burst of the sun rays right on the edge of that I guess that's a lifeguard tower or whatever you want to call it. And even in the reflection of the water coming through the framing of that structure, I really like this image. I like looking around the edges. You can tell the clouds and the sand. The only thing I can offer as a critique on this one, for me, is I think the horizon isn't level, and just that tiny little adjustment. But then that might mess up your skewing of the building, and so sometimes you get into Lightroom and you use guides on the crop tool, just a hair. But yeah, I really like this photo. I gotta take a drink. This one, immediately, I see driftwood, and all I can think of is Driftwood Beach whenever I see that. I'm a fan of driftwood. We got some around the house. And I don't know, I probably would have tried to lighten the image somehow. And again, just me, my personal taste about that, the edges of a composition, whether there's the right balance of blank space or whether they just cause that little bit of tension and seeing that point right at the edge of the picture. But yeah. And this looks like because of the buoys, like a state park. It's a little contrasty for me. Although I like the contrast, the silhouetting of the palm trees and that beach scene. There's less of a connection to supporting the silhouette so much as like a blaring sunset or a sun right in the sky or a bright light. So I'd like to be able to see just a little bit more of the details of the steps leading down and the fence and all that. But I can't tell if it looks like there's people in the water too. I like the framing of it though. I maybe would have cut in, either bring the whole scene to the right a touch to give some more space on the right of the tree, or come in and just cut right at the edge of that tree for a black right edge. Yeah. This one hits me again because of I love when contrasting colors work together, the oranges and blues in this. It doesn't, not that there was an effort made. It's like the horizon line is not necessarily in the middle. It's not at the third for a grid, but it's kind of in between those 2 points. And I think the balance is good with amount of the foreground beneath the tree and amount of sky above the tree. The colors work, the clouds. Yeah, I like this one a lot. And this one, I couldn't remember if I'd been there or not. There was a bay beach in Hawaii somewhere that I think this looks like it. But as far as an aerial shot goes, the color looks good. The detail. I might have tried to shift my perspective a little bit more to the left. not necessarily that the bay needs to be absolutely centered, but I feel like there's the right edge of the photo has possibly, you know, like less important information and maybe can be balanced with the shape of the bay and the hills on surrounding it. But yeah, this is a neat aerial photo. And this one is the typical, you know, I love the bird in front of the sunset and the haze, the reflection in the water, the surf coming in or out, that blur to that motion. I like the color, and I don't know if this was changed by the photographer at all, but it's a very, not muddy, but I like the rose orangey tone to the whole image. I find myself trying to, I think, you know, I almost want to see less people, but I'm looking at them trying to figure out what they're doing. You easily tell the dog walking on the beach, and maybe just a couple of those other silhouettes that there are some that I recognize as people, and there's a couple that I don't really know what quite that is. So that was my only question with that one. But yeah, I love the tone of this one. All right, one more drink. This one is this one I really like because of the pastel-y nature of it. Again, it's still getting into those kind of oranges and blues and tones of that, but I love the long exposure and the softness of the wave crashing onto the beach. The color of that water is phenomenal. And then yeah, I mean, the horizon line looks good. The cropping looks good. I might come in just that tiny little hair on the right side to get rid of that little edge of that concrete block. Yeah, I like even though the pier in this image is mainly in the top half of the image, there's enough interest in the action going on with the wave coming in and almost parallel to the perspective line of the pier. Thought this one was really nice.
All right, well, let's find out who won.
All right. Thank you, Michael, for your great judging and critique and awesome suggestions. 5th place this month is Lisa Hilty. 4th place, Lynn Pedler. 3rd place, Brian Garris. 2nd place, Jason Blaylock. And 1st place, Mike Sussman. And one more slide. I've included our standings year to date through August. And just wanted to remind everybody that we have 3 more challenges this year. Plenty of points left to gather. So if you're, you know, halfway up this list, I would say you're still in the running and, you know, submit your images, try to claim those remaining points. All right, Mike.
Then there's consistency. So yeah, definitely.
It is.
All right. Well, thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Michael, for the critique. Appreciate it. The Dropbox link for September will be posted usually the first week of September. Probably do it right after Labor Day, maybe a little bit before, but right around that time. But you can also go to the website and get that link now if you want. And our next meeting, hopefully I'll be healthy for this meeting, is September 19th here at the Bowen. Our presentation is Mary Jo Cox, and she's going to be discussing bear photography. She's a wildlife photographer, and I spoke with her this morning to confirm that she is coming next month. And our photo challenge theme next month is Vanishing Point. And that's it. Thank you for everybody who was coming, everybody who joined us online. Thank you, Brandon, and everybody have a good evening. I'm not going to dinner tonight, so the folks who are going to dinner can eat without me tonight. And we'll see you all next month. Everybody have a good evening. Thank you.
Exactly. What I told them, done.
Here's